Hey there, it's Kari at Studio R12 Stencils, and today I'm showing you how you can use wood cutouts and embellishments to make coasters. We have a lot to do, so we are going to go ahead and dive right in. I was doing some research on some fun fall crafts that we could do with stencils, and I saw that there were some really cute pumpkin-shaped ornaments and coasters. And that got me thinking that we have a lot of wood embellishments in various shapes, including pumpkins. So why not make coasters out of them? So I got several different sizes cut. This is a 4-inch and this is a 5-inch, and you can tell there's a big difference in these. It is the same product. But most of our coasters we typically do are 5 inches, and I wanted to show you how you could use either of these to make coasters for your home. There are two different types of surface materials that we have here at Studio R12. If you get a product and it's in an 1/8 inch thickness, it will be a Masonite, and it is more of a slicker surface. If our products are in 1/4 inch, it is MDF, and it is a little rougher. If we are going to paint on a Masonite surface, I always like to use sandpaper or sanding block to rough it up a little bit so that our sealer, our paint, and everything will soak right in. So we will just take our sanding block and very gently rub across. I am using a very soft sandpaper here. You could even use a brown paper bag, but listen at the difference. Compared to the side that I just sanded, it's much louder. So it is a little bit grittier, and that's how I like to start with these types of surfaces. So before you paint, you will want to either put these really thin surfaces on a towel. We just grabbed one from the dollar store and we've used it over and over. Or you can roll up a piece of tape and put it on the back of your surface, and then it does not go anywhere when you are painting. So the really thin surfaces, or even just a small surface in general, can move around on your table. So just a couple of tips of things that you can do so that it will stay put. Since we are wanting to use these as coasters, we will want to add some extra protection. This is what Patty likes to call her paint sandwich. We will start with a sealer, and then we will paint, and then we will add a varnish, and then on top of that we will also do a wax, because a wax gives a really hard finish. So we are going to start with a sealer. We like to use the Deco Art multi-purpose sealer, and I am just going to put out a little bit because this is a tiny surface. I don't want to waste my sealer. If you are going to be painting several of these, then I would recommend doing them all the sealing at once, and then you can let them dry, and then you can get into base coating. So we have our 1 coat of sealant done. It was very quick and easy. I'm going to pop my brush here in the water. And then while that dries, we are going to dive into our first design, because this one is going to take a little bit of time to dry. So I want to start on it first, and then we will come back to it. So I have 2 different sets of coasters that I'm going to be showing you today. The ones we are going to be painting on camera are Halloween themed, but don't worry if Halloween is not your cup of tea, that's okay. I also have some fall designs, home decor designs, farmhouse designs on pumpkins that I'm going to show you in a little bit. Our first design we are going to do with a mix and match of our stencils. Most of our designs today are mix and match with just little pieces and parts. And I'm going to start with our circle cutout stencil, and then our Happy Halloween. This is one of our story stencils. It says Happy Halloween. It has the moon, it has the witch, it has a bunch of different fun things. So when we get this one all put together, it's going to have a night sky, It is going to have the moon, it is going to have the witch, and it is going to be super cute. So we are going to start with giving ourselves a background to paint our moon in. If you are going to paint a set, then you can think about color scheme. So if you are painting Halloween, you might pull out some fun Halloween colors and then decide how you can use those colors on all of your different coasters. If you're doing more of a home decor project, then you can decide and determine your colors based on your decorations. So since we are doing Halloween for our small coasters, then we are going to be using some oranges and greens and purples and just some really fun fall or Halloween colors. I am using a jumbo dauber on this portion of our project because this is a very large area and a jumbo dauber covers a large area very quickly. I will just move this guy around. Now with the stencil and with the towel underneath it, you can see that it's kind of making my stencil lift a little bit. So I decided to go ahead and move it back to my table. I'm going to add my tape underneath my surface so that now it's nice and stiff, and I will get back into my painting of our night sky. I'm being very careful around the edges of the circle here. I'm holding it down even though we have it taped, just so we don't get any bleed through where the stencil is. And I don't have a lot of room to hold because we have this night sky coming up so high at the top of our pumpkin. So it's starting to pool a little bit because my paint is so wet. So that means you go to your blow dryer and you dry it before adding in your next layer. Okay, now we are done with our sky background. I'm going to put my jumbo dauber into my water bucket. We like to put the base of a brush into the hole of the jumbo dauber to push it down so it is completely submerged. We want to keep that submerged in there until we are able to clean it out. So I'm going to leave this on as we do our next step. When we were working our way through how we were going to do this, when we decided that we were going to spatter this background so that it looks like it is a night sky, I'm going to add a little bit of yellow paint. I do not need a lot because our spatter is not going to be very much. It's a very small area. And then I am going to spray some water and mix my paint and my water right on my palette and make it really wet and milky. I got way too much paint even after I said just use a little. Splay some of this out to get some of it off. We always use a brush to do a little anchoring, and we always practice with spattering on our palette before we come into it. It's not quite big enough for what I'm looking for, so I'm going to add a little more in here, get a little more paint on my brush, and then try again and see how the spatters are. Looks like I need some more water. Spattering is kind of one of those things that the more you do it and the more often you do it, the more you'll get a feel for it. If you don't do it very often, it might just take a little bit of playing to get that consistency that you're looking for. All right, so that's better. We are doing some spatters over our sky, and I'm just coming here. It's not gonna take very much. And then there we go. So now we have a spatter background. Okay, let's talk about base coating these surfaces. When you have a small surface that has a lot of nooks and crannies, we like to base coat with a jumbo dauber. And the reason for that is because when you base coat with a polyfoam brush in these areas, if you accidentally pull here, it is going to potentially make a mess. I think I had a couple messes over here. Actually, it looks like, oh, I have a little bit of orange on the side of this one. I did the larger ones with a polyfoam brush just to see the difference in what it would be like on the thicker surface. But if you're doing a project like a coaster that is going to be sitting on a table and people are going to see it, then you really want to make sure you have clean edges. You can go back over top the edge with an ink sweeper or a jumbo dauber and make it black, or you can go in with a teeny tiny brush just so you can clean that up a little bit. But to prevent that, we like to use the ink sweepers or the jumbo daubers to do our base coating. So we're going to go into our white. I will have all of the paint colors listed below, as well as a blog post that has all of the stencils, surface sizes, and paint colors we use. Since we are doing so many projects, we know that there's a lot going on today. So we will have a blog post for you. The link will be below, and then you can grab all of that information that you want. So when we base coat these, we go into our paint. We do come over and offload a little bit. If you have it really wet, you still run the risk of making a mess. So we're just tapping nice and gently, being careful not to push very hard when we get to the edge. I do have this one taped down, but I'm going to turn it and push it back down so that I can get the area that I want. Most of these that I have already base coated, I did base coat with 2 layers of paint. There is one of the farmhouse ones that I did with just 1 because I wanted it to have more of a rustic look. So let's go ahead and blow dry this real quick. All right, guys, Steve just had a really brilliant idea as I was turning this. So we have our tape on the back of our surface, and I am going to put it down on one of the pieces of scrap mylar so that when I want to turn it to paint, I don't have to pick it up. And then this also helps protect your table from getting paint on it, and then you can just wash off the mylar when you're finished, just like we wash a regular stencil, and we have a video showing you how to do that. So Steve gets snaps today for earning his pay. Okay, we are done with this, and we're gonna plop our jumbo dauber in the water. I'm going to set this project aside as we let it dry and go into our next one. So our next one is going to be our bats. So this is going to be a combination of 2 different stencils. So I grabbed our bat stencil from our pattern stencils. If you like to paint patterns, our 4-inch or 6-inch pattern stencil sets are a really great option to have on hand. They come with lots of stencils with a bunch of different designs, from stripes to dots and diamonds, and they're just really nice to have on hand for card painting or background painting. And then it also kind of inspires you to say, you know what, I haven't used these music notes. I wonder how I could use those, who I can make a card for, just so you can get extra use out of them. So we have put our bats on our background, and then I went through all of our Halloween stencils that we had cut and on our table, and decided I wanted to try to use this warning haunted on this project. So it is like a hanging sign, and it actually says warning haunted house, but I'm just going to do the warning and haunted, and I'm going to place it right here in the middle. Now with this, our stencil is a lot larger than our surface, so we are going to have to be careful as we paint, but there's also portions that I do not want to use. So you can either use a Studio R12 multi-masker, or you can use a piece of tape. I'm going to do a combo of both because I want this tape to not only mask, but also tape my stencil down in the areas where I can't get the tape. So for this portion here and the teeny tiny portion in the middle, I'm going to be using, you know what? I'm actually going to use a teeny tiny piece of tape there too, because then I don't have to worry about moving my multi-masker, and I can just paint all over. That's a teeny tiny piece of tape. And then you can tape your stencil. Since we can't tape it to our surface, you can tape it to your table. You can also tape it through to this under piece of mylar that we're using. The one thing that you have to keep your eye on when you are taping a stencil to the table is that you don't want your stencil to bubble up because it is taped to the table. So since the stencil is larger, it works for this project, but we will still hold it down just to make sure it stays exactly where we want. So for this, we are going to use a lime green. However, I have a really dark background with dark bats on top of it. So when we are using bright colors over top of dark backgrounds, we like to do a neutral color underneath, and we prefer to use a gray rather than a white. If you use white with red, you are going to end up having pink. So to be safe with all of our colors, we have decided to start using a gray as our undercoat. And what that will do is it will cover the area, and then it will give you a neutral background over top of the dark so that your color pops. You can do this with backgrounds. You can do it with painting over top of dark colors. I did a video on painting a bright yellow lemon over top of a black and white striped background. And in the sample I painted, I did not do a gray undercoat, and the project looked completely different when I did the gray undercoat because it actually made the lemon pop off the black and it helped cover up the black. Sometimes with these reds, yellows, pinks, they don't have as much pigment in them and they don't cover as much. Now, one thing you will want to think about when you are painting these projects is how many brushes you have. If you are using lots of colors, you will potentially go through lots of brushes. They're also small projects, so you might not need a lot of paint, but if you are going to be using lime green, maybe get all of your projects base coated and then paint all of your lime green at once so that you're not chucking something into the water and then realizing, oh no, I have more lime green to paint. You can also get a fold top baggie and put your brush in a fold top baggie until you are ready to use it again. And then that will keep it nice and damp for you and not dry it out so you can use it with the same color a little bit later. We'll peel this back in a second and see if we want another layer, if we're happy with one. So I'm going to hold down my stencil around my warning haunted. Pull this tape up here. And actually, I'm pretty happy with it. And look how cute this little coaster is. Super adorable, and it goes with our color scheme. I can't wait to show you as a whole. Now, something you need to think about, something I just ran into, I put my tape on the back of my coaster. I pushed it down, I painted it quite a bit. When I pulled my tape off the back, it did pull a little of the wood off. So you can, before you put tape on the back of your surface, you can put it against your apron or your jeans, and then you can wrap it up. And then if you have any scuff on the back of your surface, it's just really light and you can go sand it, and then you are good to go. So we have one coaster down. Let's move to the next. I am coming back to my pattern stencil on the background because I want to use my lime green brush, and I already have it out. So as I am using this pattern stencil, I am trying to see how I can get as many of these little guys in my project that I can. And I can move this around, so you don't have to use it exactly as it's laid out. You can kind of pick and choose what you want. However, this is a pretty good coverage area. The only thing I don't have is the little potions bottle, and I might be able to put that at the top here. So my green is my first one. I'm going to go in here, grab my same brush, come to my frog, and do my lime green frog. I'm going to set this brush to the side, and I'm going to add a little bit, I have a little bit of black paint on my palette already. I am using some smaller brushes on this project just because the coverage area of my stencils is smaller. And when you have a lot of patterns close together, sometimes using a large brush can cause ghosting because the brush is bigger than your area. So now we're going to come into our spider. And we're going to come into our boots. I think I'm going to do my skull and crossbones as the lime green as well, because then it kind of looks like it's maybe a toxic thing that we have going on. And then we're gonna add, I have yellow on here, but it had some water in it. So I'm gonna add a little bit of yellow and grab a small brush to paint my witch's broom. And then you can choose any colors for this. This would be really cute if you just did a tone on tone, or you could do a black background and then do a layer of gray like we had just done, and then do a bright purple over top of it. I do have a little bit of purple on my palette already. We're gonna come into our cauldron. Something that you do need to think about when you are doing these projects and you have little areas and you are trying to go in and do your second layer, that you will potentially have to blow dry between your layers, because since we are stippling, it doesn't have a lot of time to dry because we are going so fast. So with this cauldron, I tried to go back in and do another layer of purple, and it started pooling away because my paint was still wet. So then you can go into your blow dryer, do a blow dryer, go over your second layer. Okay, let's do a little reveal. Ta-da! So then we just have our cute Halloween icons. We do have a little spot that we don't have one because I wanted to put that potions bottle. So I'm just going to reset this here in an area to take up space, and I think I'm going to use the yellow here. A brown would be super cute for this, but I do not have brown in my palette for this project. All right, let's peel this back. And now we have a super cute icons coaster that goes well with the colors of our Warning Haunted coaster. So now you can see that our color scheme is coming together, and these coasters are gonna make a really cute set. Okay, it's been about 25 minutes since we did our spatter. We just came back and it is dry. So let's show you what this is going to look like. We have our little night sky over our orange pumpkin. And then we are ready to move on to our next part of this project, which is going to be painting our moon. So I'm going to put this moon here, turn it a little bit. You can choose the location. You can choose if you want it turned. Lots of different options for these. Let us know in the comments below if you're getting inspired and ready to paint these projects. So one thing about this this story stencil that I just realized. I was thinking about how am I going to paint this moon and go through here. So this is a two-part stencil. So we have the moon with the cloud, and then we have the cloud. So I'm going to paint the moon first and then go over top of it and paint the cloud and then go over top of it and paint the witch. So we're gonna have lots of layers here. The next thing we're going to do with the moon is the yellow. You can either paint the yellow straight over top, or you could add a gray. I'm going to show you what it looks like without adding the gray. So we are going to come in here and stipple. And you can see that we have, oh, don't need to go that way. You can still see the navy through it. And once again, since we're doing small projects, if you are doing one at a time like I am, you will have to go use your blow dryer quite a bit. All right, so it took 3 layers of yellow to get my moon where I wanted it to be with the brightness. Now I am going to move my stencil up and paint my cloud. So one thing that you could do for lining up purposes is when this is here, you could do your first layer really light and dusty so that you know where to line up the cloud. Or you can just kind of go off what you have done with your previous layer. I am lining this up with a little bit that I have. And we are going to do our cloud and cover up the background and the moon. I am only going to do 1 layer here. I want this to be a fluffy cloud and not one that is very bright and bold. So I'm going to be finished here and pull this off, and there we have our cute little cloud. I'm going to blow dry it though before I start to work on my witch. So we're ready to paint our witch. When we initially started working on this project, our goal, our thought here was to make our witch black. So we are going to go ahead and do that, knowing that our background here that the black is going to be covering is a navy blue. There is a chance that this witch is not going to pop off of this because the colors are so similar. So we are going to try it because I want you to see what it looks like. And then we'll talk about some other options we may have to make it different or make it pop a little brighter. All right, are you ready to see what this witch looks like? We put 3 coats because we really wanted her silhouette to pop. We are going to pull off the stencil very carefully. And you know what? It actually looks pretty good. So with this being a silhouette, it does the job of the witch just kind of floating in the background. And it's going to be kind of one of those thoughts of, did I see what I really think I saw? Because you know the sky is going to be dark and gloomy anyway. However, there are some different options you could do, so let's talk about that. You could do a lighter, more dreamy blue and purple background. You could choose one of our bright and bold colors to paint your witch, or with your stencil on your project, you could add a little bit of yellow to add a little bit of glow and moonlighting, the same yellow we use for the moon. There's a couple of ways you could do this. You could do it as a drop shadow. So you could paint your first layer of black and then shift it one way or the other, whichever way is the darkest. So whichever way that you would see, like this area down here probably has the most dark. So you would shift it down and to the right, paint your drop shadow, and then shift it back so that you would have a little bit of a shade underneath of her. Or you could come into your yellow, and when we come into our yellow and then come to our paper towel, we are getting most of the yellow paint off. And then you could just very lightly go along the outer edge and do a really light scumble. So then she gets a little bit of a moon glow on her, and then that kind of makes her pop a little bit more. But even with doing that, I think I like it with just the bold black and her popping off the background and being kind of mysterious. So now we are ready for our fourth and final coaster. I'm excited for you to see these all as a complete set. For this coaster, we are adding even a little bit more. We did this one in our bright purple, and we are going to use a combo of word stencil. This is a background words. So you could use this stencil to paint several different words on your coasters, or I have a really fun way that I use this on our home decor farmhouse designs that I'm still excited to show you. Hang on tight. And then we are going to paint a ghost, and then we are going to paint a pattern through our word. So the first thing we want to do here is decide how we want to lay this out. We're going to use the word boo, and we are going to use one of our ghosts. I think I kind of like this ghost. So I want this ghost right along the edge here, and I want my boo to go along the side. I'm going to paint my ghost first because I want the boo to go over top. So we're doing ghost first, and we do get to tape our stencil down to our surface this time. Okay, our ghost is painted, and I'm going to wait and paint the ghost face until I get the rest of this one done because I want to see the vibe of what this project looks like. I was originally going to do all of this black and white, but I don't think that this is going to pop very well if I do. So I'm going to go back into our lime green, and we are going to paint our boo with the lime green. Okay, so we have 3 layers of our boo. Let me go ahead and show you what it looks like. You could do this just the way it is, and it looks super cool with the purple and the green are super cool together. However, we are going to add another layer. We are going to paint some diamonds through the boo. And to do that, you leave your word stencil where it is. So you go ahead and you layer up your stencils so that we have the diamond stencil, which is the pattern design that we want, on top of the boo. So that when we paint the pattern, the only place that it goes is through the words that we want it to go through. So we're going back into our black, coming over to our paper towel, and then we are going to stipple over the boo. So sometimes it can be hard to tell where you are actually painting when you have so many different layers. And then we also have used the stencil several times, so there's already paint on it. And so I am looking to see where my lime green is, and I'm just kind of painting in that area because I know that that is around the area that I want it to be black. Since we have multiple stencils layered here, you will want to hold down your pattern stencil so that it can get as close to the surface as we can, and that there is not room for it to jump up and down and potentially bleed under. You can do this with any size letters. So these are smaller letters. You can also do it with larger letters. We have a Merry Christmas porch sign that is one of my favorite projects I've ever painted. And we used a paisley stencil through the letters that says Merry Christmas. So then it adds a pattern to the project. And it's not necessarily a pattern that you think of at Christmas, but it turned out beautifully. All right, looks nice and bold, and we're going to take both of these off at the same time. And then you have a little bit of a pattern on your boo. So it is not as clear to read as what I had hoped, but that can be fixed. You can go back with your boo, and it would take a few steps of backtracking and then coming back forward, and do a black or white drop shadow around the boo to give yourself that outline and then you would be able to see your pattern and it would pop a little more. You could also use a tinier pattern. So if we used when I was painting this, I was thinking that it kind of reminded me of Beetlejuice. So if we use these tiny stripes one way or the other, we would potentially have more stripes that were being used into the design. But putting a drop shadow around your project and around your word will help that pop a little bit more. So now we are going to go into our ghost. And since our words are a little wonkier than what we expected, we are going to go into the wonky face. And we are going to stipple here and pull that off. So now we have a complete coaster set. We have several different designs that work together with theme and work together with colors. This one is a little bit of an outlier with some of the colors. We did pull the yellow in here and the black, and we have the white. So you could use this and do the green or the purple as the background to make it more cohesive, or you could do a bluish purple sky that would use this same purple, and then it would bring it all together even a little bit more. So now how do we finish these? There are 2 steps left before we are finished. The first one is to use the Duraclear matte varnish on all of the coasters. And then after that, we are going to give it an extra protective coat by using the Clapham's Beeswax Salad Bowl Wax. So we love to use this to do our cutting boards, our trays, anything that is potentially going to have food on it. But it is a really soft wax when you are applying it, but when it dries, it applies a really hard finish to help protect your surfaces. So we started with a sealer and then we painted, and then we're finishing with a varnish and finishing with a wax so that you are able to put your cups on top of here and keep it safe. And we have videos on how to finish like a pro. There are lots of different ways to apply both of these products. Now, have you been waiting this entire time because now you want to see some of our other designs for potential farmhouse or Thanksgiving ways that you can paint these? All right, so here we have 4 different designs. We are going to start, since we painted with Halloween, I did add a jack-o'-lantern face. And the reason I did it on this larger one instead of the small one, because this is the smallest jack-o'-lantern face we had in that design. So I went ahead and did it on a larger one so you could see what it looks like. This is a really easy and cute and quick craft, because then you can paint all of your coasters one color and then just move your stencil from coaster to coaster. I did 4 today because typically a coaster set has 4 surfaces, but since these are just embellishments, you can buy 1 or you can buy 20 and you can have them all over your house. The next one I did was with grays. So it's a neutral theme, but it also has a little bit of sass because of our animal print and then our monogram letter. And then I did a very traditional farmhouse design with a monogram M in the blue. And I originally just did the M, and then as I was looking at these others, I thought, man, that looks really plain. So I went and grabbed one of our tea towel stripes and added our tea towel stripes to the top and the bottom of the M, and then gave it an additional pop of color. And then finally, my favorite one, which tended to just be by accident, is our harvest. So I used our Thanksgiving fall background word pattern that has lots and lots of words, and I wanted harvest to be the focus. And so I painted all of it cream, and then I went back and did a drop shadow of the black, and I had intended on moving it back and doing it cream with the black being the drop shadow. But after we looked at it, we thought it looked really pretty with the black being the focus of this. Today's project was a really fun way to get ourselves and our stencil fans outside of the box when it comes to thinking about surfaces. Go grab some embellishments, and we cannot wait to see how you paint some coasters for your home. If you like this project and would love to see more DIY and craft ideas from Studio R12, be sure to subscribe to us right here on YouTube. Ring the bell so you can be notified anytime we add new videos, and check us out on studior12.com, where we have thousands and thousands of stencil ideas for all of your crafting.